Yeah, yeah. You know why you're here. You're here for the breakdown. Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Get collected here. All right, so I have the round one game between Wesley and Peter Svidler. Of course, taken from the Goldmoney Asian Rapid Chess Tournament as part of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. So I appreciate you guys stopping by real quick, spending a little time with me chilling. For all of you out there who are from the Philippines, aking makaibigan, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na? Mabuting pagbati, ingat lagi. Almasal tayo. It's 12 o'clock in the morning. Actually, no, it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's after. So magandang apon. And I'm not sure what lunch is, but almasal, like, no, that's almasal, that's breakfast. So tayo. Breakfast, lunch, tayo, I think is the way you do it. Anyway, appreciate you guys very much. Anybody who's coming from Russia, I will say privyet to you. And kakdela, spasibo for coming by and taking a look at my video. And for all my people in the Philippines, I will learn how to say let's have lunch. Don't tell me, don't cheat. Let me find it. I'll figure it out myself. I got you. I appreciate it though. All right, if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look, see what we have for this game. We got knight to f3. We got d5. So we have like a different starting. We have like a ready type of a start. But you guys see we get into kind of familiar water. So we got d4. Knight comes to f6. We got c4. And now this, I mean, this doesn't look exactly like, you know, the other positions that I've shown before, but you can see the similarities in it. It's very easily transposable. You know, if you have like an e3 or a g3 or a knight to f3 type situation, if you have e6, you know, you guys, you know, that gets into some of the games that we've seen before type deal. So. But we do see c6, which is the Slav defense. So we've kind of varied just a little bit. So we got e3, we see a6, bishop comes to d3. We see bishop to g4. Not too worried about it because knight b comes to d2. We see e6, castles by white. Bishop comes to e7. We see queen to c2. Knight b to d7. We see b3, bishop back to h5. We see bishop to b2. We see rook to c8. Now, for some of you guys that might be wondering, you know, like why you don't just castle in this position. If you notice the position, it's somewhat closed. Like it's not completely closed because, you know, you do have like, you know, pawn takes here and like pawn pushes here that can open it up pretty quick. But at the moment, it's pretty closed. And something that you guys should be familiar, like that you guys might be familiar with as far as like, you know, the opening principles of chess is, you know, most hold to the idea that, you know, if the position is pretty closed, you know, you can put off castling. It's not so imperative. But when you're playing open positions, you know, where like a lot of the central pawns get traded off quick and it's real open, you definitely want to get castled as quickly as possible in those positions. So the fact that Peter Svidler is not castling in this position right here is not too bad of a situation. You know, there's not a crazy attack coming in the middle or anything yet. So, you know, he definitely has a tempo or two if he wants to wait a second. So he kind of does. We see rook a to c1, and then we see castling now. So, you know, all is well. We see knight coming to e5. We see c5. You know, you guys knew it was coming. Like, the biggest thing that you guys should be thinking when you see my videos is c5. Like, it just seems to always be present in the game. It's a very thematic move. So we see pawn takes d5, and then knight takes e5. And this is the novelty of the game. So we got pawn takes e5, knight takes d5. We see a3. You know, we don't want any pesky knight jumps coming in. You know, we want to restrict the knights as much as possible, as always. So the bishop comes back to g6. We see bishop takes g6, pawn takes g6. And then we got rook f to d1. So, you know, as you can see, you know, both sides have really done everything that they needed to do in this game. You know, they've developed their pieces. They got their space, their pawns pushed and stuff like that. So, you know, the only thing you can kind of say is white does have a little bit of an uglier pawn structure because, you know, they do have these double pawns. And unfortunately, this pawn is kind of blocking, you know, the effectiveness of this bishop. So that can definitely be an issue. But we see queen over to c7. We got knight up to e4. We see queen to c6. And knight jumps into d6. Now, it might look a little bit strange at first because you're like, man, can I take and take and take? But the good thing about Svidler is he notices that it's tactically losing. And he does play rook to c7, getting his rook out of that way. Because if you do go ahead and trade on d6, you'll be looking at pawn takes d6. And this is as far as you want to go as black. You do not want to take this pawn, because if you do, you're running into e4, and that's losing a piece. So a lot of the times, you know, when people, you know, they go into trades, they kind of go into it and they don't calculate far enough in, and they're thinking, okay, I'm just going to grab me a pawn or something, and then they end up maybe losing a piece. Happens to the best of us. It happened to me like yesterday, so don't feel that bad. So we see rook down to c7. Like I said, we see e4. You know, knocking the knight, trying to put it on like, you know, a worse square. And as you guys can see, you can either put it on f4 or b6. F4 is pretty much going to trap it probably after that. And it's going to be kicked around a little bit more. So we see knight to b6. We got a4 because Wesley, so he's like a knight hater. Like he's like, man, I don't like a knight. So he's just like attacking it at every possible opportunity. So the knight comes back to c8. And then we see queen to c6. So, you know, of course, that's making a capture, any capture on d6 impossible, because we do have checkmate threatened here. If anything was to take on d6 after, you know, the pawn takes back. And of course, if you go bishop there, you'll be pushing it up here. And you're not looking too good. You do have these passed pawns rolling, so we don't want to do that. So Svidler does play rook to d8. We see rook up to d3. We see bishop back to f8. We see rook c to d1, rook c to d7. We see knight takes c8. So after all of that pushing around, Wesley So says, I'm going to snap that knight off the board. So, you know, he was definitely knight hating in this game. So in this position, we actually see queen takes c8, but it was a really nice Zwischenzug in between move to actually go rook takes d3 in this position. You know, you're not, yes, you did take here on c8, but you know, the whole heart of a Zwischenzug is not taking back immediately or not playing like the assumed move, because this knight actually really isn't attacking anything on this square. So you do have time to take on d3, and you're placing an attack on the queen. You're also threatening back rank mates. So, you know, white has to respond to this. So rook takes d3, and then you see rooks taking c8. After king to f1, you see b5, and as you guys can see, you know, you're doing a little bit of damage over here on this queen side. So that was just something that could have been played, but we did see queen taking c8 directly. And then we have a5, which looks really good because it seems like, oh man, okay, we're getting into an endgame coming up. I got this pawn freezing these pawns. You know, it looks like I might be doing a little bit better in the endgame. But Peter Svidler, you know, he kind of became a gangster in this game. Well, not become a gangster. He was already a gangster before, but he kind of gangsterly played this position real quick. So what he did was he actually pushed his pawn and seemingly gave it away. Pawn took c4, and then he threw in the move bishop to b4. And that's ugly. That's ugly because, I mean, the bishop cannot be taken because rook is going to be taken, and you are dropping the exchange. So you don't want to do that. And so you're forced to move. So after queen comes to b3, you see rook takes d3, rook takes d3, rook takes d3, queen takes d3. And now you have a very, very sad pawn on a5. So, you know, Peter Svidler saw through, you know, that whole scenario and said, I'm going to go ahead and do one better. So we do see queen to c7. And as you guys can see, there is no way that you can adequately defend this pawn anymore. So we see h3, just trying to give the king some lift. We see queen takes a5. We got queen up to d7. We see queen to a2. So, you know, you can see that black is starting to kind of bully white a little bit, trying to push him around some, right? So we see queen to d8 with check. We see king over to h7. We see queen to h4 with check, king to g8. Queen coming to d8 with check, king to h7. We see queen to h4 with check, king to g8, and then we do see queen to d8. And as crazy roller coaster as this game seemed, it did end up in a draw by threefold repetition. But that is not it. If we back up to the initial queen to d8 check, there is actually a win in this position for black. Peter Svidler had a win in this game, but he just did not catch it, and he went into this draw. So if you want to go ahead and stop the video and see if you can spot the win, and more importantly, kind of the idea that is present in the position for black, go ahead and do so right now. Okay, cool. So for those of you that are looking at the position, have seen some of my videos or done a little bit of like, you know, understanding on how pawns work and stuff like that, and just kind of like the general rules of the game, right? You have heard the saying, passed pawns must be pushed, right? So understanding that particular idea, the problem that you had with the situation that we just saw was the fact that the king kept getting checked, right? So the key move in this position after this first initial check, and actually this was a move that you could have played one before this one, is actually bishop to f8. Now it might look kind of strange because you're like, why am I backing my bishop like all the way back to the back rank? Like that's like a horrible square for it, right? The idea behind this particular situation is you want to make your king completely defended and blocked, and basically just kind of like, you know, basically create like a fortress like wall that is not penetrable by white. And you're most importantly trying to clear your pieces out of the way for what is going to be coming up in a second. So you do have the realization that this bishop is attacked. So, I mean, you do have other moves, but these are probably two of the top moves that you'll see in the position. The first one is bishop to c3, just trying to get away from, you know, this queen attack and making sure that we don't put ourselves in a position to where, you know, we're going to get, you know, checked and forked with our bishop. So we would see queen to a3. We have to make sure that we defend against this square because this bishop is pinned at the moment. So if you allow this bishop to get here, you're going to be winning a bishop completely. So we have to make sure we defend against that first. After queen comes to d2, you guys kind of probably should see the idea that white is trying to defend against, the pushing of this pawn. Because you guys should notice, because of the past pawns must be pushed, that this pawn literally has nothing stopping it from getting a touchdown. So you have queen to b3, stepping out of the way of the pawn. Queen to d2, trying to make b6 impossible because we want to go b6 and a5. But we do see b6 anyway. And as you guys can see, you are starting to get your pawns rolling over here. So you have the support that you need from this pawn to start pushing this pawn. You have this square covered. You have this square covered. So the idea is making sure that you're solid as far as your king is concerned and pushing that pawn. This was a winning idea in the position. Now, if we went back just a touch after bishop to f8, another alternative was queen to b6. But this kind of ends up being a little bit easier for white to push the pawn because you can just directly push the pawn to a5. Queen can take on b7 and then you see a4. And as you guys can see, you know, this pawn is getting really dangerously down the board. And this bishop is about to be attacked soon. There's not a lot you can do to, you know, stop the forward advance of this position. So this was actually a win that Peter Svidler had in the position. But you know, I'm not sure if he saw it and he calculated and he thought maybe I go into that, or if he just thought, hey man, I played a good game, let me just go ahead and just hop into this draw. But that was that game. And like I said, you know, when you see the possible win, you know, you kind of feel good for Wesley so that he didn't, you know, that Svidler didn't find this win because it would have been a really bad blow. So that's fortunate for Wesley. So you know, fortunate for you. Anyway. For all my people in the Philippines, get these good mornings. I'm getting through them a lot faster now, so I think I'll, you know, just kind of be spitting them out and stuff like that. So let's see what's up. So maayong buntag, mayad na agahan, naibag na bigat, masantos ya kabason, morhe na aga, buenos dias, maayong aga, mapia na uma, kapian kapuno dios, mayap a abak, mayad na aga, mapia agay, mapia kapapita, my big abukla, moraja na buntag, Maria Mainat, Maupe na aga, Kasanyangan si elubi, Assalamu alaikum, salam, and merci beaucoup. Bam, that was much better than last time, so I'm happy with that. So like I said, I will learn how to say let's have lunch in the future. But spasibo to anybody coming from Russia, and I will see y'all next time.